Hey, everyone, and thanks for keeping it tuned here. There's a lot going on in the US right now, and one story that's really heating up is this growing clash between President Trump and a few Democratic governors, mainly Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and California Governor Gavin Newsom. It's all about the National Guard, power, and who actually gets to decide what happens inside each state's borders. It's a fascinating situation that's raising some big constitutional questions, and it's starting to feel like one of those moments that could shape how much authority the federal government really has over the states. So, here's what's going on. President Trump recently directed around 400 Texas National Guard troops to deploy to states like Illinois and Oregon, saying the move is part of his broader push for law and order. But here's the twist. Those states didn't request any help. In fact, their governors are saying the move is illegal. Illinois' Governor Pritzker called it an invasion of his state's authority, and he's actually suing to stop the deployment. And over in California, Governor Newsom is furious too. He's threatening to pull his state out of the National Governors Association altogether if it doesn't stand up to what he calls executive overreach. Now, that's not just talk. Newsom and Pritzker are accusing the Trump administration of bypassing state sovereignty entirely. And remember, in Oregon, a federal judge already blocked a similar move earlier this week, ruling that sending troops there would break federal law. So clearly, this issue isn't isolated, it's spreading, and it's setting the stage for a major political and legal showdown. Let's pause for a second and think about this. Should the president be able to send military troops into a state that doesn't want them there? Or should governors have the final say within their own borders? This is the kind of constitutional tension the founders probably imagined could happen, but it's rare to see it play out this directly in modern times. Legally speaking, this all comes down to how we interpret a few key laws, mainly the Insurrection Act and the Posse Comitatus Act. The Insurrection Act, which dates back more than 2 centuries, gives presidents the power to deploy the military inside the U.S. during extreme situations like insurrections or rebellions. But critics say what's happening now doesn't meet those conditions at all. There's no active rebellion, and these states aren't in chaos. They simply disagree with federal immigration enforcement and certain policing measures. So if there's no uprising, does the law really apply here? And then there's the Posse Comitatus Act, which prevents the military from being used for domestic law enforcement. So, even if troops were deployed, they couldn't just take on police duties or enforce local laws. Legal experts warn that crossing that line could set a dangerous precedent, blurring the boundaries between civilian and military authority. On top of that, there's the question of state sovereignty under the 10th Amendment. Governors like Pritzker and Newsom argue that the Constitution gives states the right to control their own National Guard units unless they're formally federalized for war or a true national emergency. They say this kind of deployment, ordered without their consent, undermines that balance completely. So, we're left with this huge question. Is this about enforcing the law or expanding presidential power beyond what's constitutional? And more importantly, if one president can do this now, what's to stop a future president from doing something similar for totally different reasons? Politically, it's also really interesting to watch. Both Newsom and Pritzker are seen as potential contenders for the 2028 Democratic nomination, so taking a tough stand against President Trump gives them a big national platform. Meanwhile, the National Governors Association, which is supposed to be a bipartisan body, is under pressure like never before. Newsom says he'll pull out of the group if it stays silent, which could turn this into not just a legal fight, but a full-on political fracture between red and blue states. President Trump, on the other hand, is defending the deployments as a necessary move to restore law and order, especially in cities he says are struggling with crime and unrest. He argues that the federal government has the responsibility to step in when states fail to maintain safety or protect federal property. Supporters of this move see it as strong leadership, the kind of decisive action they believe Washington has lacked for years. But critics say it's authoritarian, a misuse of military power that could undermine democratic norms and even trigger a constitutional crisis. So, where does this all go from here? Well, all eyes are now on the courts. Illinois, California, and Oregon have all filed lawsuits to stop the deployments, and federal judges will have to decide whether these orders violate the Constitution or fall within presidential authority. The rulings could set major precedents about how far a president can go in deploying military forces domestically. And then there's the political fallout. Will other governors join Pritzker and Newsom in resisting? Will Republican-led states continue backing Trump's approach? And how will ordinary Americans react to the sight, or even the idea, of military units moving into U.S. cities without a governor's approval? It's one of those moments that forces us to ask, who really holds the power in America? The states or Washington? And how much authority should one person have when it comes to deploying the military inside our own country? Whatever side you fall on, one thing's for sure. This showdown is about much more than just troop deployments. It's a test of the boundaries of federal power, state sovereignty, and ultimately, the resilience of America's constitutional system. So, what do you think? Should the president have the power to send National Guard troops wherever he believes they're needed, or should governors always have the right to say no? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you all think about this one. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more updates on this developing story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care and stay informed.